He laughed, pointed, and said, "You want to fight me?" She said nothing, but what happened next? The whole gym went silent. You're watching BrainFuel, where true stories ignite your mind like never before. Don't forget to like, share, and smash that subscribe button, because this is a story you'll be thinking about long after the video ends. The air inside Iron Forge MMA gym was electric. Punches landed on pads with satisfying thuds. Jump ropes sliced the air, and sweat glistened on foreheads. It was a Saturday afternoon, peak training time, and the regulars were in full beast mode. Coaches barked instructions. Fighters grunted through grueling rounds. It was the kind of place where egos ran hot, and no one backed down from challenge. That's when Jason, the Brick, Randall walked in. 6'2", shredded and loud. Jason wasn't just a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai. He was the gym's self-appointed king. His Instagram bio read, "Built different," and he acted like it. He dominated the local circuit for years and wasn't shy about letting people know it. Cocky? Maybe. Talented? No doubt. Today, though, something was different. Across the room, by the water cooler, sat someone no one recognized. She wore basic gym gear, nothing fancy. Faded hoodie, simple leggings, hair tied back. No flashy gloves, no gear bag. She wasn't warming up, just observing. Calm. Still. Alone. Her name was Alicia, but no one knew that yet. Jason noticed her as he wrapped his hands in the corner mirror. He nudged his friend, laughed under his breath, and said, "You see the new girl? What's she here for yoga?" The guys chuckled. It wasn't meant to be cruel. It was Jason's usual bravado. But when sparring partners were being picked for a light round, Jason couldn't resist. He raised his voice, making sure everyone heard. "Hey, you new girl, you want to go around?" All eyes turned. A few people laughed. Some looked confused. Alicia glanced up, then pointed to herself as if to ask, "Me?" Jason nodded. "Yeah, why not? Let's have a little fun." More laughter. This wasn't unusual for Jason. He was known for challenging newer members just to show off, especially if they looked like they didn't belong. Alicia didn't say a word, but she stood up slowly. Something about her posture changed. The room began to shift. She walked toward the mat calmly, deliberately, and set her water bottle down. Then, without a word, she reached up and peeled off her hoodie. Underneath it, she wore a worn-out competition rash guard, its faded design barely visible now. It hugged her frame, and it became clear to everyone, Alicia wasn't just some random visitor. She looked lean, powerful, and composed. Not like someone who wandered into the wrong gym, but someone who knew exactly where she belonged. Jason's grin faded slightly. "All right," he said, bouncing on his heels. "Don't worry, I'll go easy on you." There was something patronizing in his tone, and a few people nearby exchanged glances. A few others began filming quietly. Something felt different now, like the start of something unexpected. Alicia didn't even respond. She simply walked to the center of the mat, bowed respectfully like she'd done it 1,000 times before, and raised her hands. The referee signaled the start. Jason came forward light on his feet, tossing a few playful jabs into the air. But Alicia stood still, eyes locked on him, unshaken, laser-focused. Jason moved in closer and threw a half-hearted jab toward her shoulder. Then it happened. In one lightning-fast motion, Alicia slipped the punch, stepped to the side, and hooked Jason's leg with a sweep so smooth it looked choreographed. He hit the mat hard, his back slamming into it before he had time to register what just happened. The gym went dead silent. Jason blinked up at the ceiling. He let out a surprised laugh and got up quickly, brushing it off. All right, lucky move," he muttered. But something had changed. Gone was the cockiness in his stance. Now he circled her with caution. His eyes narrowed. He was sweating, not from exertion, but from realization. The woman he had challenged on a joke was no joke at all. On the sidelines, whispers started. Some people lowered their phones and began to really watch. Others leaned in. A couple of white belts stopped their own sparring sessions just to see what was happening on that mat. Jason tried again, this time faster, more focused. He jabbed, stepped in, faked left, and threw a right hook. But Alicia didn't flinch. She ducked under, moved to his side, and countered with a low sweep and shoulder toss that sent Jason skidding across the mat. The sound of his body hitting the floor echoed through the gym. By now, people weren't laughing anymore. They were staring. Jason sat up slowly, face flushed. Not from embarrassment, but from shock. Across from him, Alicia stood tall, breathing evenly, calm, composed. She didn't smile. She didn't smirk. She didn't say a word. She just adjusted her stance, ready for the next round. And at that moment, the entire gym realized. The quiet woman they all ignored might be the most dangerous fighter in the room. The room was holding its breath. Jason stood across from Alicia, bouncing side to side with his gloves up, his usual routine. Only this time, his energy wasn't playful or arrogant anymore. It was defensive, unsure. He'd just been taken down in front of his crew, in front of his students, and most importantly, in front of someone he didn't understand. And Alicia? She stood there like a statue carved from calmness itself. Her feet were grounded. Her eyes locked onto his movements with eerie precision. Her breathing steady and relaxed, like she'd done this 1,000 times. There were no theatrics, no trash talk, no posturing, just a quiet storm waiting to be unleashed again. The gym's regular noise, music, chatter, trainers yelling, had faded into a low hum. Everyone was focused on the two fighters on the mat. The ref gave a slight nod. "Let's go, round 2, he said. Jason didn't wait. He lunged in this time, more aggressive. A quick jab-jab cross combo aimed at Alicia's head. But as fast as he was, Alicia was faster. She slipped every punch, moving just enough to evade contact without wasting energy. Not a flinch, not a stagger, just total control. Then she struck back. One step and elbow to Jason's shoulder, then a fake to the leg, then a hip throw. Jason found himself in the air again, landing flat on his back with a loud thud. It wasn't brutal, it was clinical, clean, like she'd done it while half asleep. The entire gym reacted with a collective "oh." Jason scrambled to his feet, now breathing hard. This wasn't just an upset anymore. This was starting to look like a clinic. And he was the student. Sweat dripped down his temple as he tried to smile it off, but his eyes betrayed him. They weren't laughing. They were trying to solve the puzzle that was Alicia, this woman who moved with military precision, who didn't flinch when punched, and who threw black belts like rag dolls. He tried to switch it up. He moved into a low wrestling stance. Maybe he could overpower her with brute strength, pin her, hold her down, control the grappling game. He shot for a double leg. But Alicia sprawled fast, so fast, locking his arms, spinning around, and getting to his back before he could blink. Then she mounted. The crowd leaned forward. Jason, a man with years of grappling under his belt, was now pinned underneath someone who hadn't even spoken a word yet. Alicia didn't ground and pound. She didn't gloat. She simply controlled him, made him fight for every breath. He rolled, twisted, bridged, but nothing worked. It was like trying to swim in cement. She shifted again, and in a blink had him in a triangle choke. Not tight, just close enough for him to feel the danger. Jason tapped, not because he was out of breath, but because he understood now. This wasn't some casual gym bout anymore. He was no longer testing someone new. He was sparring with a technician, a killer, a master. The ref stopped it, and Alicia gently released the hold, backing away with grace and humility. Jason stayed seated for a second. He wiped the sweat from his brow, nodded to himself, then looked up at her. "Who are you?" he asked, panting. But Alicia just smiled softly, offered a hand, and helped him to his feet. No words, no need. By now, the whispers in the gym had turned into full-on chatter. People started circling in, phones out, jaws dropped. "Did you see that throw? She had him locked down like a spider. Is she a jiu-jitsu world champ or something?" The energy had changed completely. Where once there had been laughter and ego, now there was respect, admiration, curiosity. Jason put his hands on his hips, still catching his breath, and then did something he rarely did. He clapped. For her. Others joined in. A slow, growing round of applause broke out. Not the kind given to a fluke or a lucky hit, but the kind given to someone who had just earned their respect in full. Alicia bowed once more, then walked calmly to the edge of the mat, picked up her hoodie, and zipped it halfway. She still hadn't said a word. Jason, meanwhile, shook his head and muttered to his friend, "I asked her to fight as a joke." Then he looked up again, still stunned. "But she might be the toughest person I've ever sparred." And he meant it. The moment Alicia stepped off the mat, it felt like the entire gym exhaled for the first time in minutes. People who had been frozen in place started whispering, murmuring to each other in disbelief. Others scrolled back through the videos they had recorded, replaying the throw, the triangle choke, and her fluid movements again and again. Even some of the most seasoned fighters looked around, eyes wide, brows furrowed. Jason, still seated on the edge of the mat, wiped his face with a towel and stared at Alicia as if trying to decode a riddle that made no sense. "Who was she?" one of the students asked. "She didn't even break a sweat," another whispered. "That wasn't just skill. That was mastery." Nobody had seen her before. She hadn't come through the gym's usual intro program. She hadn't sparred with beginners or asked for a tour. She hadn't talked to anyone. She just came in, signed a waiver, and waited quietly by the wall like she didn't belong. But now it was clear she absolutely did. A few curious fighters walked over to the front desk and peeked at the digital sign-in sheet. They scanned the list of names, their fingers stopping on one. Alicia Monroe. One guy pulled out his phone and started typing into Google. Another searched for her on Instagram. A minute later, the room lit up with another kind of energy, recognition. "Yo, look at this." Someone held up a phone. It displayed an old YouTube video from a jiu-jitsu tournament 5 years ago. There she was, Alicia, younger but unmistakably her, standing on a podium with gold around her neck. Then another search revealed more. National competitions, tournament wins, articles from women's martial arts magazines, even a brief documentary clip titled, "The Quiet Champion, Alicia Monroe's Rise in Combat Sports." People were stunned. She had been a rising star in the grappling world, known for her technique, her control, and her humility. No drama, no showboating, just results. But just as fast as her career rose, it disappeared. No recent fights, no new articles, no competition entries, just silence. She stopped competing after her daughter was born, someone read out loud. And get this, she used to teach the military. She's got a black belt in both BJJ and judo. The room was quiet again, but now for a very different reason. No longer was Alicia the new girl. She wasn't just a visitor. She wasn't someone who got lucky with a few clean moves. She was a ghost from the fight world, resurfacing like a legend you heard stories about, but never believed you'd actually see. One of the coaches, a grizzled veteran of the MMA scene, approached Alicia gently. "Alicia Monroe? From the Midwest submission circuit?" he asked, almost in disbelief. Alicia nodded politely. "I thought you retired," he added. "I did," she said, "for a while." Her voice was soft but confident, the kind of voice that didn't need to shout to be heard. The coach smiled. "You've still got it." "I never lost it," she said. "I just had other priorities." People gathered around her now, but not in a swarm. More like students approaching a master. There was awe in their eyes. Respect. Some were even a little embarrassed, remembering how they'd laughed when Jason first called her out. Jason himself walked over, holding his water bottle, still catching his breath. His usual smirk was gone, replaced with sincerity. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I challenged you like it was a game. I thought you were just, I don't know, some beginner." Alicia smiled. "No offense taken. I needed that," he admitted. "You showed me what real control looks like." That moment, Jason, the loudest guy in the gym, bowing his head in respect, was something no one expected to see. And yet it felt right. It felt earned. Alicia didn't come there to prove anything. She wasn't there for followers or fame or clout. She had come for herself, to see if she still had it. And now, everyone knew she never lost it. Her return sparked something even deeper than the match itself. It exposed how quick people were to judge by appearance. How easy it was to underestimate someone quiet, someone different, someone who didn't play by the loudest in the room rules. And yet, Alicia had never needed to raise her voice to make the entire room listen. Jason had never been the kind of man to admit defeat easily. He was the top dog, the crowd pleaser, the guy with the sharp jabs, both verbal and physical. For years, he built a reputation on being untouchable at the gym. When people talked about Iron Forge MMA, Jason's name came up first. He was the guy who'd knock you down, then help you up with a smirk that said, "Better luck next time." But today, Jason wasn't smirking. He stood in the center of the mat, shoulders rising and falling as he caught his breath. The crowd had mostly dispersed, people returning to their stations, but the energy had changed. Nobody dared challenge Alicia. No one even joked. Instead, they watched her with respect. She was back on the sidelines now, rehydrating quietly, like nothing major had happened. Just another sparring session. Just another round. Jason walked over to her, towel around his neck. This time, there was no bravado in his posture, just humility. He stopped a few feet away, as if unsure how to approach someone who had so effortlessly taken his crown. Everyone turned to look. Conversations paused again. Phones tilted upward. A few people began recording, not because they expected drama, but because this moment felt important. Jason looked Alicia in the eyes, and then, to everyone's surprise, he bowed. A deep, respectful martial arts bow, not rushed or half-hearted, but full. A gesture of surrender, humility, and most of all, gratitude. "You're incredible," he said simply. "Thank you for the lesson." The gym went silent again. Jason, a man who used to laugh off his opponents, was thanking someone who'd taken him apart technically, piece by piece. Not with aggression, not with brute force, but with calm control. Alicia hadn't humiliated him. She had humbled him. Alicia didn't gloat. She didn't smile wide. She just gave a small nod and offered her hand. Jason shook it. "I needed that," he added. "More than you know." Later that day, Jason took to Instagram, where he had nearly 80,000 followers. He posted a clip of the sparring session, specifically the moment she reversed his takedown and locked him in the triangle choke. The caption read, "Got schooled today by a real warrior. I asked her to fight as a joke. She left me breathless, literally and mentally. Respect to Alicia Monroe, one of the cleanest technicians I've ever shared a mat with. Iron sharpens iron." It went viral within hours. Comments poured in. "About time someone taught you a lesson, Jason." Respect. Takes a real man to admit that. Alicia Monroe? Is she coming back? By the end of the day, Alicia's name was trending in martial arts forums. People were sharing old competition videos. A few even posted clips of today's match with the caption, "The Return of the Silent Storm." But what mattered most wasn't the attention. It was how the energy in the gym shifted permanently. Alicia didn't ask for praise, but people started approaching her differently. Younger fighters asked her for tips. Coaches invited her to co-lead drills. Even Jason began watching her technique from the side, nodding to himself like a student again. Iron Forge was no longer Jason's gym alone. Alicia had become part of its heart. And the lesson she taught that day, without shouting, without showing off, was one people wouldn't forget. Humility can be stronger than hype. Skill will always speak louder than ego. Perhaps the most powerful moment came just before Alicia left. One of the female students, no older than 17, nervously approached her. She had been watching everything, wide-eyed. "Miss Alicia," she said, "do you teach?" Alicia looked surprised. "Not lately. But maybe." The girl's eyes lit up. "I want to move like you. Not just fight move." Alicia knelt down, looked her in the eye, and said something simple. "Then start with control. Power without control is nothing." The girl nodded eagerly. That was all it took. Later that week, Alicia was offered an open coaching spot at the gym. Not because of her medals or viral fame, but because people saw her in action and they wanted to learn from her. She accepted, on one condition. "I'm not here to create champions," she told the owner. "I'm here to create complete fighters, on and off the mat." Alicia didn't return to the gym for attention. She didn't come back to reclaim old titles, spark rivalries, or prove something to the world. She came because something inside her had shifted, a quiet voice reminding her of who she was, and perhaps more importantly, who she could still be. After the sparring match with Jason, word of Alicia's return rippled far beyond Iron Forge MMA. Local coaches began calling. Fight schools started sharing footage of her online. Old friends from her competitive days reached out, stunned to hear she'd step back onto the mat. But Alicia remained calm through it all, just as she had during the match. She wasn't chasing a comeback. She was redefining what strength meant on her own terms. Days after the match, she returned to the gym, not as a visitor, but as a mentor. The gym's owner had offered her a permanent coaching slot. At first, she hesitated. She had responsibilities, a daughter in middle school, a part-time job, a life outside the fight world. But then she thought of the young girl who had approached her shyly after the match, asking, "Do you teach?" That moment stayed with her. So she said yes. And everything changed. Alicia began teaching twice a week. Not your typical high-intensity, competition-focused classes. Her sessions were rooted in discipline, control, and self-awareness. She taught her students how to read body language, how to conserve energy, how to dominate without violence. It's not about crushing your opponent, she told them. It's about reading the rhythm, finding the silence in the chaos. Her classes quickly filled up, especially with students who had once felt like outsiders. Younger girls, older beginners, people who'd felt intimidated by the aggression and noise of typical martial arts spaces. Alicia's presence gave them permission to belong. And Alicia? She found herself again. But her impact didn't end in the gym. Months later, she was invited to speak at a women's martial arts seminar. It was her first public appearance since her early competition days. She stood on stage in front of 200 people, athletes, trainers, fans, and curious observers, and told the story of the day Jason challenged her. She didn't frame it as revenge, or justice, or even a comeback. She framed it as a reawakening. "We spend so much time waiting for the right moment to prove ourselves," she said. "But what if we didn't have to prove anything? What if we simply walked into the room and let our presence speak?" The audience hung onto every word. She shared how motherhood reshaped her mindset, how it humbled her, how it gave her a new kind of strength, one rooted not in explosiveness, but in patience, not in dominance, but in dignity. Being underestimated is painful, she admitted, but sometimes it's the greatest gift. It gives you the freedom to rise quietly and surprise everyone. By the end of her talk, the entire room was on their feet. Alicia wasn't just a fighter anymore. She had become a symbol of what it means to walk away from the spotlight and then return not for applause, but for purpose. Meanwhile, back at the gym, Jason continued training, but differently. He stopped mocking people. He sparred with intention. He began helping Alicia run warm-ups. And every now and then, he'd tell new members, "Be careful around Coach Alicia. She might not say much, but she sees everything." In a world where louder often means better, Alicia had flipped the script. She didn't need flash, or noise, or bravado. Her movements spoke. Her silence spoke louder. And that lesson stuck with everyone who saw her spar that day. Weeks turned into months. Alicia became a fixture at Iron Forge. Her daughter even started attending kids' jiu-jitsu classes, quietly observing her mom from the sidelines, eyes filled with pride. One evening, after class, a teenage boy approached Alicia, looking hesitant. "Coach," he asked nervously, "do you think I'll ever be good at this? I'm not fast or strong. I feel behind." Alicia smiled gently and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're already ahead," she said, "because you're still here, still trying. Skill can be taught. Heart can't." It was moments like that, small, intimate, powerful, that showed the real depth of who Alicia was. She wasn't just the woman who shocked the gym. She was the woman who transformed it, the one who walked in quietly and changed everything forever.